Hello, my name is Bernadette Carpenter, and I'm the Innovation Lead here at KVEC, and I'm in charge of the Learning Innovation Grants and the Fire Summits. Today, I'm going to take some time and do a quick overview of the application for the Learning Innovation Grants and give you some pointers and some tips. One of the first things that you'll see in there is the definition of innovate, and that's to begin something new and to introduce. And this is guidance for you on things that you can write into your grant. We want things to be innovative, to not be things that you've done the whole time, but something new that you've researched and come up with to address your problem or practice. And these things can be it could be in the way that students are included in an active learning process, which is my favorite probably because I love to see the kids doing things, as well as instructional techniques or delivery systems, and it's in the way that educational systems are organized and managed. An element of the KVEC mission is to identify, support, and promote innovative practices in education. And KVEC is here to support those educators and their students who are daring to be great. And throughout the past 5 years, we have seen so many wonderful teachers and students that have dared to be great and continue to do so. When you look inside your grant, well, first let me go over this a little bit and talk to you a bit more about innovative practices. And we encourage the inventors of innovative practices to start developing an evidence base so that over time these interventions can be held up to review and demonstrate their effectiveness, which is basically you have to keep some data on it. But don't be scared when I say data, because that can just be pictures. It can be a variety of things. First, we practice transparency. Second, we provide ongoing support for anyone that gets the Learning Innovation Grants. You have my personal cell phone number. You can call me anytime or you can email me. Third, we encourage all grantees to use action research designs so that over time others can learn from what they're doing, and we can make sure that the things that they are doing are effective, because we don't want you to keep doing something that's not working for you. Fourth, we showcase and highlight the work of innovation grantees. And fifth, we practice access to an online portal, which is the www.theholler.org, to review current and previous grant recipients' work and videos. Now, if you have not been on theholler.org, you're really missing out, because we have all of the videos from the past fire summits that are housed on there, and you can get some really good ideas from there, some guidance when you're writing your grant, because you can see what other folks have done throughout the past 5 years. We also have, when we talk about highlighting the innovation grantees' work, we have 2 fire summits throughout the year. This year, our Fall Fire Summit will be October 23rd, 2019. And in the spring, it's April 22nd, 2020. So during this time, in the Fall Fire Summit, we actually celebrate I don't want to say celebrate, we're focused more on the teacher and on guiding their work, giving them feedback. We had the feedback session in the evening, which was wonderful. So basically what happens at that Fall Fire Summit is that you come, if you're a grant recipient, and you do like a 10-minute Ignite presentation. There is no PowerPoint required at that point. We only do that in the spring, but you'll bring a poster that tells the story of what you are doing with your grant. And then folks will give you feedback on ways that you could change or improve what you have already thought you wanted to do, or maybe ways that you could do it a different way. You may hear things from other presenters also there at the summit that make you want to change something in your grant or do it a little differently, and you may not, and that's okay. But it's always good to get that feedback from other educational folks and to be comfortable with it, with those folks, and able to take the feedback and implement it. Oh, and in the spring, then you will go to the Spring Fire Summit. And at the Spring Fire Summit, that's when we have our big celebration. All the kids come that are involved in the project. If you want to bring them, it's not required, but it is required that every grant recipient be at the Fall and the Spring Fire Summit. So we just really celebrate. You come, you do a PowerPoint, you have your Ignite presentation talking about what you did, the results of you identify your problem of practice, and then you talk about what you chose to, the strategy or whatever that you chose to address that with. And then you talk about how it worked for you. Did it work? Didn't it work? And how you share the data with us. And then you will talk about, okay, I'm either going to refine it this way or I think I can do this better. And it's just a really, really great day. We just have a good time and celebrate the educators and the students. Now, the Area Innovation Grant must, and this is really important that you look at this, address an important challenge in education, pass through a competitive review process focused on the project's design, demonstrate the promise of tangible improvement in teaching and or learning. Award recipients agree to present their proposed innovation at the Regional Fall Promising Practices Fire Summit and to present their associated results at the Regional Spring Action Research Fire Summit. So that's what I was talking about. You'll come in the fall and you'll come in the spring. And if you can't agree to that and you can't be present on those days, then you need to really reconsider, because that is a requirement. It's not an option. It's a requirement in receiving the Learning Innovation Grant. Now, it's also very important that you put down specifically what you are going to be doing, because as it said right there, there's a competitive review process. And I'm not the one who selects those grants. Here at KVEC, we don't do that. I organize it. I get all the grants. I get copies of them made. I put it on a spreadsheet. But we have outside folks that do that for us. So make sure you can't just assume that people know what you're talking about. You have to put it down. Action research is a big part of this, and it's the improvement of practice, the improvement of the understanding of practice, and the situation in which the practice takes place. And when you think about action research, folks were a little scared in the beginning when we talked about it. But when you think about it, you're just comparing against something that you're doing either in your classroom, or you're comparing two groups of students. You have a control group and another group, or you're comparing against a different classroom. It's not like the big research paper you did in college. So just keep that in mind. Now, when we're talking about the application, we're actually to page 5, and you must identify your area of focus and your research questions. So what is your identified problem of practice? You'll write an action plan, which will be minimum of 250 words, but you can write more. What are you going to implement to address this problem of practice? What resources are needed? Who's involved? How are your students actively involved? And that's so important to have your students actively involved, because even if it's something that you're doing for yourself as a teacher, if it doesn't impact those students, then it's not a go, because anything you do should be to improve the learning of those students and the instruction that you're going to be doing with those kids. So please remember, you are systematically studying the impact of a specific strategy on a specific problem. So you have to narrow it down. You have to determine what is my specific strategy and that I'm going to address my problem of practice with. So how will you evaluate your project? You have to tell us, because if we don't know how you're going to be evaluating that, then and if you don't know, more so than us, but it does have to be in the application. But you have to really think about that ahead of time, and you have to know what data you're going to be collecting and what evidence will be collected, and how you're going to use that, and how are you going to demonstrate that and show that when you come to the summit. On page 8, you'll see a budget narrative is required that defines the grant expenditures. If you put down that you're going to be buying something, then it needs to relate back to what you're doing in that grant. If it is just, let's say you want to get an iPad, well, that's not going to go. How is that iPad changing that instruction for that student? And it can't just be, well, I'm going to put them in centers and they're going to use the iPad. That's not really telling me anything, because that's just saying I'm going to put the iPad in centers and they're going to use it. What are the students gaining from that? What strategy are you using that is going to be helping those students to get a better education and to help them to learn more? So keep that in mind also. Please don't just put down you want iPads because you don't have technology, because it won't go. I can tell you. You have to show how it's actually going to impact the students. And then you'll complete a project summary, which is on page 7 of the application, and submit a digital photo. And the digital photo is, we used to make the program books hard copy and put those in it. We haven't done that lately, but we need a digital photo because we have to upload to the hauler, and also it's just very helpful when we have that. So please be sure and include that. Now, keep this in mind. Don't leave anything out. All applications must be completed. If they're not, they will be put aside and they won't even be scored. So please keep that in mind. And I was going to switch back and forth and show you the application page, and I might possibly do that in just a second. Maybe I need to do that. Let me see here. Okay. I think I have it here. Okay. So when, as you can see there's the innovation. It talks about that, and it guides you through the whole process. It has basically what I've had in this PowerPoint, but it is a little bit more specific and talks a little bit more about it. It talks about the procedures and requirements and the dates that you're required to be there. The last deadline for the grant submission is August 23rd. You will be notified, and we said September 3rd, but we moved that back a little bit because we thought that possibly we could get them out by the 27th. So you will be notified by August 27th. We have the dates for the Fire Summit, the fall and the spring, and those are required. They're not optional. And your final report, which includes all your finances and everything you've done, must be submitted, uploaded to the hauler, and all your financial stuff must be sent to me for reimbursement. Now, here's the first page. Let's look at it. The application cover page. We added something new this year because we're going to be using the same application for regular ed and special ed. We have done this in the past, but we really hadn't had this up here to identify them. I usually can by down here, but I think that this is going to be helpful to us and to the scorers when they use them. So the first thing you do is mark that. Are you regular ed or are you special ed? You'll put your name in. Grade level, very important for us because we organize a spreadsheet that we follow, and also when I schedule you for the summits, I try to put folks that are as close to the grade level in the same rooms as possible. We need to know the number of students involved. Your email address is super important because if you have one thing wrong in it, then I can't get in touch with you, so I can't even notify you if you get the grant, and we can't have that communication, so that's very important. Phone number's important. I prefer your cell phone or your home phone rather than your school phone, but you can put both if you want and identify which is which. You'll put your school name. That's very important. The county and the school address. We also, in the spreadsheet, all this information is included in it, and we use it all year long for different things. So please make sure you put all that in there. Now, here's something that's very important. All grants must be signed by the grant application, and when you sign that, you're agreeing that you'll be there on those days that we say that you must be, and you will do everything that you're supposed to do, and you'll follow through with this grant, and you'll do the best you can do for your students, and you will provide us with all the information about it. Your principal, we ask for your principal's signature because we want to make sure that they know what you're doing and that they have buy-in, because we don't want to come up and them say, oh, we can't get a sub for the day of the summit, because that's a no-go also. We'll be asking for funds back if we've already reimbursed. So we want to make sure that the principal has buy-in and that the superintendent has buy-in and that they know what's going on. And it's just real important to know that for everyone to know what you're doing. Because, I mean, a lot of this, well, every bit of it is to be celebrated. I actually went last year to a board meeting where one of the districts recognized their folks that received learning innovation grants, which I thought was really great. Now, your title's really, really important. And if you don't have a title, then your grant's not going to be considered, because that's something that has to go on the holler. That's what I'm going to put in the program book. So your title guides us on what you're going to be doing on down here. So make sure you put your title in. This walks you through the action research process. You identify an area of focus, as I said before, determine what your problem of practice is, and you'll identify that. Then you'll learn more about your issue. You'll do some research. You'll talk to some folks. You'll determine what strategy that you can use or to address that specific problem. We talked about that, and that's the day for the Fall Fire Summit. Have to be there. Once again, I have to reiterate that. And also the holler, you need to visit it and look at previous presentations. And when you do that, if you just click on Summit in the tab top of the right screen, you'll be able to go straight to those. So we have them since 14-15. Then you'll implement, plan, collect, and analyze data. And this takes place between the Promising Practices Fire Summit and the Action Research Summit. So when you first come to the Fall Fire Summit, you'll just come, you'll identify your problem of practice, you'll tell what strategy that you've determined that, or product that you're going to be using to try to address that problem of practice. Then you'll go over your plan, the exact steps that you're going to be using, and then you'll begin to implement after that. And you may have already implemented even before that, but you'll implement, plan, and analyze data and communicate those results at the summits and on the holler, and you'll continue to have reflection and plan for the new cycle. So in the spring is where you'll come back, and then you'll go all the way through this. But in the fall, you'll tell about this plan, your problem of practice, how you're going to address it, and step by step on how you're going to address it. Not just, you don't assume anybody knows anything. You have to put it all down. So this just kind of talks about, it's kind of what I've already gone over with you. So I don't think I'm going to talk to you much about that. But if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Now, we came up with these 8 questions, the 8 guiding questions, during an action research training, because we prepared them for folks to guide them through how to actually write a grant using action research. So when we did that, everyone was like, and we did this several years ago, it may have been the second or third year that we did the grants, but when we did that, folks were like, this is wonderful. Why don't you put this in the grant application, and it can serve as a guide for folks in writing their actual proposal. So we did. We listened, and if you answer these and you go in depth, and I'm not going to read each one of them to you because it is in your application, but it's very important to answer these, and sometimes we get applications that haven't, and that's okay. As long as you have a narrative that answers all these questions, your narrative should include the answers to every one of these questions. So if I get an application that doesn't have the answer typed in right there, I'm okay as long as it's over there in the narrative and I can look at it and I can say, okay, what is your problem of practice? And I can see it there. How do you know this is a problem? What strategy will you implement this year to address the problem? And it goes on and on. But it guides you through exactly what needs to go in that application. And if you have any questions, once again, just let me know. Now we're to the application budget page. Now, it says to please attach a sheet describing how the items you have identified in your budget relate to your problem or practice and activities. So on this sheet, you will put the description of what you're going to be purchasing and the amount it's going to cost. Then on a separate sheet, you will put how that item is going to be used in the implementation of your grant proposal. So it has to relate directly, as I said earlier. Project funds must be spent during the school year, and a final expense report must be given to me by May 15th to be reimbursed. And I think I skipped something back up there, but let me talk to you about this and then I'll go back to it. But when you're writing your grant, look back here at the scoring guide. It actually has a scoring guide that tells you what is required to be a 3, 2, or a 1. Well, you want to be a 3, and it addresses innovation, so you have to address that in it. Project goals, do you have that? Project design, and it will tell you what you can get to get the best score. So I really suggest that you look at that and pay close attention to it, and maybe score yourself or have someone else score you when you have finished with your application, or you feel like you're almost finished, so you can see if you need to do something different. Now, this page is a page that you will have to sign, and it's in the grant application, but once you are awarded the grant, then you will sign this again. But if this is not signed in the grant application, you'll be put to the side in the beginning. Oh, one more thing on the budget. Let me talk to you about that. I almost forgot. Do not go over $1,000. And I say that to you so strongly because if you do, your grant application is put to the side because it's over budget. So if your school is donating $250, which would make it $1,250, put down there $1,000 requested from KVEC, and the school will be giving me the other $250. I mean, it's wonderful if you have a matching funder. If someone else is giving you money, that's great, and we love to know that. But when you put down the total amount requested, please make sure you only put $1,000 from us. And like I said, if you go over, identify who's going to be paying for that. I've had people say, it's $12 over. I'm picking that up myself. So I just wanted to point that out because that's very important. Now, I'm going to go over this specifically because this is things that we really want you to make sure that you can commit to in order to receive this grant. And if you can't commit to it, then don't apply. So, are you making a commitment to engage in action research? And this video will be on the holler. There's another one on there already that I did last year, basically the same video, except our dates are different for the Promising Practices Fire Summit and the Action Research Fire Summit. So, one thing that it does require that you attend both these days, as I said earlier, and you participate in the entire day. We have some folks that think maybe that after their presentation is over that they're finished. Well, that's not the case. You're required there for the entire day because not only is this a day for you to share your findings, but it's a day for you to listen to other folks share their findings. And you may get some really good ideas. And I don't think anyone likes to be up there and no one else in the audience because they've decided, that they don't really need to stay. So please be mindful of that. And I am very adamant about that that you have to be there for the entire day. In the fall, you will develop a poster that tells the story of your work you are doing with your grant proposal, and you'll deliver that presentation. You're agreeing to develop and deliver a 10-minute PowerPoint presentation and prepare a table to display at the Action Research Fire Summit and participate in the entire day. You agree to have videos of your presentations from both of the fire summits included on theholler.org and for the public to view those. You agree to be part of an ongoing support network on theholler.org, and you will make posts at least 4 times during the school year. If you make more, that's wonderful. And we have people that make them almost every week, and I love that because I love seeing what's going on out there, and it's just so exciting. But you are required to do one by October 15th. That post will probably include just an overview of your grant and what you've done at that point. And I love pictures. Pictures tell a story, videos tell a story. So you can upload a video if you have that, upload pictures. By January 15th, you must have another one, and by March 15th. And then the final post is by May 15th. And that final post for May 15th will be just kind of what you presented at the summit, because it will tell the whole story like your poster did in the beginning, and it'll have all kinds, it should have all kinds of pictures, it should have a video if you've done one, and I would encourage you to video. It should have multiple videos, because when you're doing these wonderful things, that's what you want to do. You want to show that, and people want to see that. So be sure and keep documentation as you go. You will complete the appropriate paperwork for reimbursements and expenditures by following established KVEC and USDOE procedures, and you'll complete all this in a timely manner. And you will sign your signature saying that you agree to all that, and your principal signs also. Okay. I kind of just went ahead and took you through the application. I'm going to see here if there's anything I missed. What I did in this was I just kind of broke it down, but when I went through it, I think that pretty much covers it. But let me talk to you a little bit about this, though, the action research process. I mentioned it when we looked at the application, and in your application it does give you these pointers. But this kind of gives you a little bit more in detail. So identify the student learning problem you want to address and develop specific questions to guide your research into the learning problem. So that's your first step in the action research problem. That's when you identify your problem of practice. Then you want to learn more about it, so you're going to be doing your reviewing the literature on the learning problem, and you'll review all of that available information. Then you'll develop your plan, and we talked about that. You'll implement plan, collect and analyze data, and you collect data that answers your research question. So it's not just about collecting anything. It has to relate back to that research question, and you'll analyze the data, and you're going to be looking for findings with particular significance that you want to share with other folks, and just for yourself, so you'll know if it worked or not. And something I will say to you is sometimes these don't work, your strategy that you choose, but how could you take it and make it different? And you always learn something from what you do, but it's okay. It's okay to fail, because sometimes we learn more from our failures than we do our successes, as long as we have done our very best and we've done what we said we would do. You'll communicate those results. We talked about that. And then you'll continue the reflection. And this says you'll consider your conclusions, your implications for practice, your strengths and limitations of your research, and then your next steps. How are you going to make those adjustments that you're going to be needing to make it more successful? I'm not going to go through all that. Also, let's see. We talked about the sheet that guides you through it. Be very specific. That's important. I know I said that earlier, but I'm going to say it again because we don't know what you mean. So you have to be specific. And I'm guilty of this. Sometimes I think people can assume or they know what I'm thinking, and I can just put down a quick little jot, but we really don't know. And in order to give us the full picture of what your grant is going to be doing, we have to see what is it exactly you're going to be doing with those students, and how is it that that's going to impact them. So be sure and don't leave anything out. And here's one thing that's very important. Keep your focus on how what you are doing is going to impact the students and their learning. Because if it's not, and I talked a little bit about this earlier, but maybe I didn't put it in those words, but focus. Your focus has to be on how what you're doing will impact your students and their learning. Now, I also have a page that I'll be uploading, and I have it's a sample. Is it perfect? By no means, no. But it's a pretty good example of someone who has answered the questions on the action research worksheet. So it was adapted. We made some changes on it, and the teacher agreed to let us do that. And we've shared this one for years, actually, and I have several others I could share, but and I'll be happy to do that if you need me to. So the budget narrative, we talked about that, and the scoring. We talked about the assurances page. I think I covered everything on there. Now, here's some important points. And if I've not said them already, I may have, but I'm going to say them again because it's very important that you listen to me on this. Your innovations or your proposed innovation should be framed around specific teaching and or learning goals. Your grant should be innovative and follow the action research process. All parts of the grant must be submitted in order to go to the scoring process, because what happens is they go through those grants. If all parts are not in it, they're laid to the side and they won't even be scored. Here's another thing that'll get you laid aside. Budget must not go over the amount of $1,000. I talked to you about that before, so make sure if it goes over that you include that source that will be paying for the additional cost. All submissions will be evaluated by an external review team using the enclosed scoring guide. As I said, we do not score them. We send them to someone else that's outside. Learning Innovation Grant applications are due August 23rd, and we did one round in the spring, and that was wonderful. Folks did great getting them into us, but we realized that we have a lot of new teachers. We had teachers that had moved from one school to another, and we felt like we ought to give them an opportunity to be able to apply. Fax copies will not be considered because there are no guarantees when you fax something. You can't make sure it's coming through. So you will upload them to the holler. I sent that out, a specific spot, and it's on the new application that we sent out this fall. And I receive an email from that. And that lets me know that you have uploaded that, and I can see the application right then when you upload it. If you do have difficulty doing that, please give me a call. My number's on the front. I will help you with it, and we'll work through it. My number's actually on the front of the application, and my email. But it's also here if you want to write this down. Be sure and use my hazard email. I was McGoffin before, and a lot of times it pops up, and that causes a lot of problems. So, and I will explain to you, one of the reasons that we started uploading the applications to the holler was my fear that I wouldn't get applications, that it would go to my junk mail or someone would forget and send them to my McGoffin one, and I wouldn't know. So we're just trying to get better at making sure that we don't overlook anything. And as far as I know, in the 6 years we've done this, I've not overlooked any because I've tried to be so careful. But we think this is going to be an easier way for us, and hopefully for you all. And this is my number, and here's where you upload your grant application to. Now, if you have any questions, please feel free to notify me.